from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the program Wednesday night. Here's our phone number if you want to join our late night national town hall conversation. Give us a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. It's my honor and privilege to be with you this evening. Sometimes you lose sight of everything, right? It's radio. You can't see anything, but sometimes you kind of lose track of how many people are out there. And despite looking at the numbers and ratings and all that stuff, but every now and again, you'll get an influx of calls, or you'll get an influx of emails or text messages or comments on social media posts from people that don't normally chime in. And they'll say the nicest things. And it kind of reminds you, I'm not just speaking into a microphone. I'm speaking to America. And I absolutely love that. I love all of my my compatriots. I love this opportunity that we have every night to have this town hall conversation with people from New York all the way to Alaska. And, of course, there are some markets where you guys are listening on delay. Feel free to complain to your local affiliate. And for those of you who said some really nice things recently, like, you listen to a transistor radio and try to get me in a different market so that you can listen live, God bless you. That's fantastic. If you have access to the internet, you can always listen to this show live at richvaldezamericaatnight.com, richvaldezamericaatnight.com, and that's Valdez with an S. Now, yesterday we talked a lot about the news on Trump and everything else that's going on. That continues today. You've got RFK Jr. blasting the Colorado court decision to ban Trump from the ballot. We also have Joe Biden. Now, Joe Biden has chimed in on this. He didn't have a ton to say, but listen to what President Biden had to say about Trump getting tossed off the ballot in Colorado.
Mr. President, your reaction to the Colorado ruling on Trump at the ballot?
I'm not going to comment on a court case. That's up to the court.
To hear. But what he's saying behind the sound of the chopper blades going in the background there, she says, Mr. President, your comment on the Colorado ruling. And he says, it's up to the court. It's up to the court. And that seems like a fair thing to say, but I think it would have been a decent thing to say had he said something like, well, I don't think we should take the ability of the American public to vote away from them. And this is a mistake on behalf of those in Colorado. My hope is that I'll be able to square off against Trump fair and square, and hopefully they'll reconsider. Right? That's what I think Biden should have said. You know why? Because people would respect that. People like me would be forced to say, you know what, I don't like Biden, but I got to give him some kudos for standing up like a man and saying things the right way. But guess what? That's not what he said. And then, of course, I don't want to call her a lapdog because I think that's rude. So I'm going to call her KJP, Karine Jean-Pierre, his press secretary. She decides to chime in and make no comment. Listen to this.
Do you have any reaction to the Colorado Supreme Court?
So, look, we follow the law here. Cannot comment on anything that is related to an upcoming election like 2024, and this is a legal process, so I'm just not going to comment.
Does the president believe that Donald Trump was an insurrectionist?
I'm just not going to get into not going to get into a legal process here. Obviously, there is one. I'm not going to get ahead. I'm not going to speak to the decision that Colorado has made. I'm just not going to comment on it.
Do you see if the White House would like the Supreme Court to quickly pick up this case to get it settled?
Look, what I can say is the president's not involved. We're not involved in this. This is a legal process. We're just not going to comment.
As a general matter, does the White House believe
this was going to happen?
that major party political candidates, the court should decide which major party political candidates should be on the ballot?
Just not going to get involved in any court decision that's made. The Supreme Court, any court decision, it's a legal process. Going to leave it alone, not comment. 2024, not going to comment. Hatch Act. We try to do our best to follow the law, and just not going to comment on this.
You know what's funny is when there was a court decision involving Roe v. Wade and it getting overturned, guess who was one of the first people out there commenting on this? That's right, Joe El Baboso Biden and not his lapdog, but his press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, KJP. They had no problem talking about legal cases there, right? No problem at all discussing these rulings. So I think they're fake, they're phony, they're fraud, they're full of it. But while Joe Biden would not comment on anything other than saying, rah, 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 I think the court should decide, he also said to the folks in Milwaukee that Trump, quote, certainly supported an insurrection. And that seems like a comment, right? While it's a little bit of a swipe. He wouldn't specifically make any comments on the court case, but he did say that he, again, the quote is, just so that we have it right here, certainly supported an insurrection. That's Joe El Baboso Biden. And when he was asked whether Trump was an insurrectionist, Biden said, well, I think certain things are self-evident. Right? You'd think he's quoting, some of our founding documents. Unbelievable. Going on to say, we saw it all. And whether the 14th Amendment applies, I'll let the court make that decision. But he certainly supported an insurrection. There's no question about it. None. Zero. And he seems to be doubling down on about everything. Now, the Colorado Supreme Court ruled 4-3 that Trump should be disqualified from the primary ballot on Tuesday evening. An advanced decision from the state Supreme Court states that President Trump is disqualified from holding office under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution. That's the Colorado State Supreme Court that made this decision. And that since he's disqualified, it would be wrongful under the election code for the Colorado Secretary of State to list him as a candidate on the presidential primary ballot. It goes on to note that the court will stay its ruling until January 4th, subject to any further appellate proceedings. So again, once Trump appeals, he will remain on this ballot. It's that simple. Unless they can, enforce it another way to push him off the ballot, which I just don't see that happening. I don't think it's going to happen. I think there's nothing to worry about here, but we'll see. We'll see how it turns out. I could be wrong, right? I could be wrong. I could have way too much faith in the United States Supreme Court. I could have way too much faith in humanity. I could just be off my rocker here. Anyway, we're going to continue this discussion because Attorney General Bill Barr has weighed in on this. As have many others. And we're going to hear a little bit of that audio. We're also going to get the analysis and insight from one of America's top lawyers. He was a lawyer to former President Trump. He was also chief of the Organized Crime Unit at the Department of Justice. And he's going to be joining us straight ahead. Plus your calls, 833-482-5337, 833-4 Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations, everybody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
but
right.
You're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
As you know, I strongly oppose Donald Trump for the Republican nomination. But I think that this case is legally wrong and untenable. And I think this kind of action of stretching the law, taking these hyper-aggressive positions to try to knock Trump out of the race are counterproductive. They backfire. As you know, He feeds on grievance, just like a fire feeds on oxygen. And this is going to end up as a grievance that helps him.
All right, that is the voice of William Barr, former Attorney General of the United States. And Bill Barr says this is not a good move legally, and this is only going to help Trump. Weighing in, giving his opinion on this and giving us some analysis on this is Jim Trusty. He's former chief of the organized crime section at the Department of Justice. He was a prosecutor for 28 years, and he's currently with the IFRA law firm. Jim Trusty, welcome back, sir.
Hey, Rich. Good to talk to you.
Likewise, sir. Always a pleasure. So lots of analysis flying around. Everybody has an opinion. All sorts of things are going on here. But I want you to, what do you think of what General Barr just said?
Well, a lot of it I agree with, and Barr is not exactly a cheerleader for President Trump. So for him to say, that this is a stretch, I mean, and that really, just to step out for a quick second to the broader picture, that's the commonality we're seeing in all of these prosecutions and all of these efforts to bring down President Trump is creative lawyering, lawfare. And what it's doing is it's ruining the criminal justice and the civil justice system because it's taking lawful standards and twisting them into political activity. And so I think Barr is right to say that the court went out on a limb in Colorado on this. I think it's certainly his comments certainly suggest that the Supreme Court won't tolerate this. His comment about the grievance, this is President Trump just lives on grievances. Well, he has a right to have a grievance at this point. I mean,
right.
They're criminalizing things that are not criminal, and they're trying to kick him off the ballot in Colorado with incredibly flexible standards that I think only would apply if President Trump is the target. So you can call it a grievance dismissively, but I think it's a legitimate, lawful grievance.
Jim Trusty, if you will, would you say that I'm being hyperbolic or sensitive or emotional if I look at this and I say that it's catastrophic, it's an erosion of our justice system, will never be the same again? Is that a stretch or is that fair?
Well, it's fair if the case stays as is. To have basically 4 judges out of 7 twist the law around a result that they want to have happen, I think that's a pretty devastating moment, and it may not be the last of that kind of decision-making that we see in the courts across this country. But I just don't think it's going to last. We've got a Supreme Court led by Justice Roberts who doesn't really want to have the Supreme Court deciding, gigantic electoral issues. I think it's pretty clear he's very worried about the reputation of the court, about the attacks that inevitably come from the left if they rule by the law. And so he probably doesn't want to have to touch these things, but I think he's going to have to. And there's a whole bunch of ways, either foundational or procedural, that this case could actually garner up a 9-0 tally. I mean, Ty Cobb, a former attorney for President Trump, has said that he's very confident that this whole issue about Article 3 within the 14th Amendment applying to the president is a winner for President Trump, and that they're all going to jump on. And I think he could have unanimous action if it is something that's kind of procedural or foundational. If you get to the merits of insurrection, I think you can predict what at least 3 of the justices would do on the Supreme Court. And frankly, that to me is the horrible story within this opinion, is this sham of a trial that relied on things like the J6 committee. The report from the Adam Schiffs of the world was given great deference in the opinion. In fact, and forgive me for getting on the soapbox here, Rich, but
no, feel free.
There was they interviewed one of the House lawyers on this. I know this guy well. And they said, gee, was your committee biased against President Trump? And he said, well, we had hypotheses as a starting point, but we were very fair. It's like, you're literally asking the fox, did you treat the hen fairly? Yes, we were completely fair as we ate it. And so that was one part that really struck me, is that this was the vouching for this incredibly politicized committee. And then the second part, and it was just amazing in this 213-page opinion, which included the dissents, there was a stretch where they were justifying the finding that President Trump had engaged in insurrection. And by the way, they took many pages to try to even define insurrection. But when they did, they turned to a sociology professor who's an expert on political extremism. And apparently, if you look at his curriculum vitae, which I did, it's almost entirely about white supremacist groups. Well, this guy basically testified as the Trump dog whistle whisperer. He said, I know President Trump said things like peacefully and patriotically, but that's code for violence. And so the court latched on to this like ridiculous junk science and allowed that to be the basis or a basis for taking a former president off the ballot in Colorado. And I just step back and think if anybody else in the history of our politics was being knocked down by this junk science, you'd hear voices from both sides of the aisle. But because it's President Trump, the ends justify the means, and we're supposed to let a sociology professor disenfranchise all the Colorado Republican voters.
It seems insane to me, but it seems to be normalized, and that's the new way of doing things. Now, Jim Trusty, you mentioned Ty Cobb. Like General Barr, he's another one that used to work for Trump, but can't stand the guy. And even his opinion is that this isn't going to go right. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you've lost Bill Barr and Ty Cobb, you're in trouble in terms of the legal assessment here. I don't think they lightly tread in favor of President Trump when it comes to their legal analysis. They're getting there different ways. I mean, Cobb's point is, and this was actually what the Colorado lower court, the trial court, found. The lower court had this ridiculous 5-day trial, and that's where I have all of my problems with the due process of this kind of sham trial when you have not been even charged with insurrection anywhere. But there's this starting point, which is whether Section 3 even applies to the president. And the lower court in that case pointed to the legislative history of the 14th Amendment, and it had president spelled out originally, and that was then taken out of the final draft. So the logical inference there is it was a conscious decision to remove the president. And that's where Cobb comes down on that. He also looks at some comments that Justice Roberts has made publicly that suggest that is good law, that's the right read of the 14th Amendment. And he thinks you have a 9-0 sweep on that kind of foundational basis that the president is not a, quote, officer of the United States. There's other ways to skin this cat. There's other things to look at in terms of free speech, of due process, of sufficiency of insurrection, whether it needs to be a conviction as opposed to clear and convincing evidence, which is what this judge used. So there's a lot of different kind of procedural and foundational hooks, but this officer issue is one that could get some life at the Supreme Court.
All right. So, Jim Trusty, I want to get into the weeds a little bit on some of that procedural stuff, because I think these arguments that I'm hearing, some of them are very meritorious. And I think for the sake of the audience understanding this stuff, it's important because all they're getting on CNN, MSNBC is, Trump is guilty of sin and he's an insurrectionist and throw the book at him. And this is the right thing to do. So I want you to walk us through that in the eloquent way that you always do. Folks, we're on with Jim Trusty. He's former chief of the organized crime section at the Department of Justice, served as a prosecutor for 28 years, former lawyer for President Trump, and he's currently with the IFRA law firm. Jim Trusty's coming back with us, plus your calls, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ if you want to join our late-night national town hall conversation. And I urge you, don't move a muscle, because we're coming right back. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
Whether it is a court that determines he's unfit to hold office because he took up force against our Constitution or mobilized a mob against our Constitution, or because the electorate throws him out, I don't think it really matters if he's unfit to hold office. We should all be encouraged by any action that makes it less likely that he will return to the presidency.
That is Senator Chris Coons, Democrat from Delaware, says whatever the reason for Colorado's ruling, he's encouraged by the decision. I think this is part of the problem, and that's why I want to get into the weeds a little bit and get into some of the procedural action that's going to happen moving forward. And with us is Jim Trusty, former chief of the Organized Crime Section at the United States Department of Justice. He spent 28 years as a prosecutor. He was a lawyer to President Trump previously, and he's currently with the law firm IFRA Law. Jim Trusty, it seems like from a political and partisan perspective, Democrats are really enthused by this bending and erosion of the law, but it seems like it's bad law, and it's coming from, like you pointed out earlier, from some people that are not necessarily fans of Trump, just trying to call it as they see it. Now, with that being said, what do you think we can expect as this moves forward and goes to, is the first step the United States Supreme Court, is the first step, appealing it to the Supreme Court in Colorado? What's that process like?
Well, we're already at the Supreme Court in Colorado, so I think we have to be talking U.S. Supreme Court as the next move. And, and look, the general percentages of cases where the Supreme Court grants certiorari is small, right? There's a lot of cases where, the defense attorney loses the trial and announces on the courthouse steps, we're going to take this all the way to the Supreme Court. Right. And then you never hear anything. So, it's not like this is an automatic, but I think it's such a critical issue, and it's a, precedential is a friendly way to put it. It's certainly a new ruling, an important historic ruling. I don't think it would be that hard if I remember correctly, 4 justices would have to agree to take this thing. And it's kind of invited. I mean, the court stayed their ruling until January 4th. Now, January 5th is the day that the Secretary of State of Colorado has to finalize by certifying the ballots. But they've kind of left it open like we know this is coming, and I think it really is. I just can't imagine that even with Justice Roberts' reluctance to be in the middle of the field of fire, that they could walk away from something this critical, this radical in terms of what the ruling was.
Now, Jim Trusty, again, that's, you speaking as an experienced lawyer. I looked at that and I thought, just as a political observer, these guys are CYA. They're leaving the door open so that they can bring this to the SCOTUS. And once they do, they're saying, well, we're going to go ahead and stay this until January 4th, just in case there's some changes. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and move forward with it. To me, it seems like it's almost a guarantee that Trump's going to stay on the ballot. Do you think I'm reading that wrong?
I think you're reading it optimistically, and I'm somewhat there too. I don't think that, we've had the last laugh on this case at this point when you see the mainstream media celebrating the wonderful work of the 4 judges. I do think it's probably going to get reversed, but there's no automatics in this world. Right. We know that. We know that there's a general reluctance of the Supreme Court to weigh in, but I think that they could weigh in on kind of the procedural, or they could weigh in on the substance. I frankly would like to see them weigh in on the notion that a 5-day expedited trial relying on quack professors and the J6 committee, that can't be due process to literally kick a presidential candidate off of a ballot. So I'd like to see them get to the full merits of it. But again, in the spirit of kind of keeping the profile less hot, I could see Justice Roberts pushing some of these other angles to try to get a consensus and get rid of it on a more procedural grounds. But I think it's coming, but we have to wait and see. They'll file for their petition. We'll see if it gets granted. They don't have to ask for a stay yet, which is usually a little bit of a bellwether of how the court's going to view it. And so they'll get this thing filed, I think, in coming days, and we'll see where it goes.
So now, when this happens, the Trump team goes. They, like you said, they're going to request a stay. They're going to make the argument that they make. What do you think the argument that they're going to put forward is going to be, or the main argument? Is it that they've, in effect, found Trump guilty of a crime that he's not been charged or convicted of? Or is it, like you mentioned, the fact that the standard that the court used of using this professor as some sort of expert and somehow finding Trump guilty based on what this guy's saying?
Yeah, well, remember, you never want to waive any argument, so you're going to raise a bunch. But I would say that the most powerful arguments that I see from reading this opinion, one is whether, and this was kind of a procedural burden that the Supreme Court of Colorado was happy to gloss past, whether this was a non-justiciable federal question. In other words, is this in the wheelhouse of federal courts or state courts to interpret the 14th Amendment third clause? I think the federal question is an issue. Due process, as I've been saying, is a huge issue. I think that free speech is an issue. You know, there's only about 5 categories of types of speech that are not protected by the First Amendment. Things like defamation, true threats, inciting crime. If you look literally at the words that President Trump uttered during January 6th and into the next day or two, I don't think that they fit any of those categories. I mean, even Jack Smith can't bring himself to literally charge incitement. Right. I mean, they're trying the case like it's an incitement case, but they're not charging it. So at the end of the day, if it's on this cusp of free speech where we say, well, we don't always like every word that comes out, we don't like the way he phrased it, but it's not criminal, it's not defamation, it's not a threat to an identified person, then it's free speech. And so to turn around and to use free speech as a basis for criminal-based disqualification just seems kind of crazy. But I think you have to go hard at all these things, and I think you have to go hard at this expedited trial. You know, the Supreme Court of Colorado said what a great system that they were able to do this expedited trial and hear evidence in 5 days. The dissent basically called this a breakneck pace and that it was unnecessary and unfair. And I think in the grand scheme of things, if you're talking about taking a leading presidential candidate off a ballot, you darn well better do better than just turning in somebody else's homework and then turning to the dog whistle whisperer and saying that's good enough. And by the way, you know, they mentioned when President Trump said things about go peacefully and patriotically to make your voice heard. The Supreme Court of Colorado said, well, that was just kind of isolated. And I thought right then, I'm like, all right, I got to throw the replay flag. Like, we're now in a world where you're literally looking at exculpatory evidence and saying, yeah, well, he didn't say it enough times. And that's just kind of absurd. So, you know, there are holes in this opinion that I think the Supreme Court is going to basically bash through. But, you know, we just got to make sure they take it on cert. If they take it on cert, all these things are fair game, and they may get all the way to that bottom line of the substance of whether this was a fair trial and whether it actually established incitement. But I'll take it whichever way they go. They need to remove it from the books. If they say that this is that Section 3 is not addressed to the President of the United States because he's not a, quote, officer of the U.S., that's fine too. But they certainly have to overturn it on some ground.
Right, and that seems to be the one that most states have used, and I'd like you to touch on that when we come back. Folks, we're on with Jim Trusty, former chief of the Organized Crime Section at the Department of Justice, and we're coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
I expect that to be reversed by the U.S. Supreme Court. I think the precedent that a court could just take somebody off the ballot without even any type of criminal conviction or anything like that, I think that is not the way the law is intended to be enforced.
We don't need to have judges making these decisions. We need voters to make these decisions. So I want to see this in the hands of the voters.
And so, actually, on the way on the bus ride over here, I said that I would, from Colorado's GOP primary, withdraw from that name and require every other Republican in this race to do the same thing, at least until every candidate actually gets to run.
I do not believe Donald Trump should be prevented from being president of the United States by any court. I think he should be prevented from being president of the United States by the voters of this country.
That's several of the candidates that are running for president on the Republican side: DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Ramaswamy, Chris Christie, all kind of weighing in saying, this isn't cool. This isn't how it should be. It should be the people that decide, not the men in black, the guys in the black robes. So I want to get Jim Trusty, our guest, former chief of the organized crime section at the Department of Justice and former prosecutor, former attorney for President Trump, and currently with IFRA law firm. The ifralaw.com is the website. I want to get him to weigh in on the premise here. Is the president holding an office under the United States, or is the presidency in and of itself the executive branch, and therefore it's not subject to Article 3 of the 14th Amendment? Jim Trusty, what say you?
Yeah, I tend to think that's right, and I fall back to what the lower court said. The lower court was no friend of President Trump. They found that he engaged in insurrection. But they also said it doesn't matter because he's not an officer, as that term is defined under Article 3. And again, that's what Ty Cobb's weighing in on and mentioning Justice Roberts from, I think, an opinion he stated maybe it was about 13 years ago. So I think that'll be really interesting to watch. That's a close call. I'd like to think that, that reading the legislative intent as the district court will actually prove to be correct and will be a winner. Although, again, I wouldn't mind seeing the court get all the way to the merits. If the Supreme Court rules that he is not an officer for purposes of this part of the 14th Amendment, then in one big swoop, all of these cases drop off a cliff, which I think would be good for the country. All this 14th Amendment-based litigation, I haven't read all of them. I know there's variations. There's always going to be issues of standing in terms of the people filing these things where there may be procedural reasons why they lose, or they're seeking preliminary injunctions, and that's a higher burden to satisfy the court. So there's a lot of reasons why these plaintiffs' actions to take them off the ballot in different states should fall apart on their own weight. But the Supreme Court could bite on that first ground and end the whole game.
Now, if that's the case, let me rephrase the question. So if I'm John Roberts, right, I believe that my goal is the path of least resistance, where I look least political, where it doesn't look like I'm putting my thumb on the scale, but it looks like I'm defending justice. And, of course, there's the option of him saying we're not doing it, and I guess they don't take the case at all, which would seem like a big mistake. And then there's other avenues that you just mentioned. What do you think is the safest, least political-looking option of the court taking this case?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I do think this officer issue could come off as being somewhat apolitical, right. But I think probably the best way to look at it would be to talk about what does the 14th Amendment contemplate as the basis for disqualification? Does it require some sort of sham trial with the sociology professor and Liz Cheney's comments, or is it something where you have to have a conviction to be disqualified? And that, to me, would be the cleanest way to just amputate the whole story, to say what we mean in that circumstance is that the person trying to run for office has been convicted of insurrection. I mean, obviously, we would hope and think that'll be a pretty small universe, for millennia, but that's probably what was intended. And so wiping it out on the basis of a conviction, not having a factual trial where some judge in Colorado decides what to believe and what not to believe, that's another clean way that I think comes off as a pretty apolitical way to dispose of it.
Outstanding. Well put, sir. Thank you for all of your insight and analysis. I want to wish you a very, very Merry Christmas. And Jim Trusty, let everybody know how they could find you if they need to find you, if they need to hire you. Where do they go?
Well, that's a great Christmas gift. Thank you. So IFRA Law is the name of our firm. We're in Washington, D.C., right around the corner from the White House, and ifralaw.com is our website, and we're happy to take all comers. And thanks for giving us the time to get on tonight. Appreciate it.
You bet. And, folks, if you want to follow Jim Trusty and see what he has to say on different things, give him a follow at a very cool handle. It's @TrustyLawyer, @TrustyLawyer on Twitter, also known as X, and the other social media. You can see what he's got to say there. Jim Trusty, you are a gentleman, patriot, and a scholar, and I appreciate you, sir.
Thanks so much, man. Good talking to you.
You bet. All right, folks, we're going to get to your calls and more straight ahead. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, America, welcome back. Feliz Navidad and Merry Christmas. I love Christmas time of year, and I'm getting ready to start celebrating. By the way, tomorrow evening, a special treat for everybody in America. You may have seen her on Newsmax television, or if you're in the New York area, you've heard her on the radio. My former colleague, Lydia Serrani, she's going to be on the program tomorrow. I don't want you to miss that. Lydia Serrani will be here tomorrow evening, and I'm looking forward to her being with us. Anyway, I also want to talk a little bit about Jonathan Turley, right? He's with Fox News. He's a professor of the law, and he says that the country's now a powder keg, and the Colorado Supreme Court is throwing matches on it. Listen to this.
Well, this court just handed partisans on both sides the ultimate tool to try to shortcut elections. And it's very, very dangerous. I mean, this country is a powder keg, and this court is just throwing matches at it. And I think that it's a real mistake, but I think that they're wrong on the law. You know, January 6th was many things, most of it not good. In my view, it was not an insurrection. It was a riot. That doesn't mean that the people responsible for that day shouldn't be held accountable. But to call this an insurrection for the purpose of disqualification would create a slippery slope for every state in the union. This is a time when we actually need democracy. We need to allow the voters to vote. We need to hear their decision. And the court here just said, you're not going to get that. In Colorado, we're not going to let you vote for Donald Trump.
No.
And, you know, you could dislike Trump. You could believe he's responsible for January 6th, but this isn't the way to do it. I mean, it is, you know, for the people that say they're trying to protect democracy, this is hands down the most anti-democratic opinion I've seen in my lifetime.
So that's Jonathan Turley, and he says this is one of the most anti-democratic decisions he's ever seen in his lifetime. We've heard Bill Barr weigh in on this. We've heard Ty Cobb. We've heard Jim Trusty. It seems that everybody seems to be in agreement, right? I haven't heard a lawyer yet, other than these four judges, that think that this is fantastic. Yeah, now there was a couple of lawyers on CNN and MSNBC that were saying, no, this is the right thing to do. This is just Trump stalling. It's a stalling tactic. But again, they put the emphasis on Trump. These guys are putting the emphasis on the actual law. And I think when you analyze the law and you look at the law and what the law is supposed to stand for, it doesn't matter who your defendant is, right? Right is right and wrong is wrong. And it doesn't matter who the subject is. So that's where I stand on this. I think the whole thing's fake, it's phony, it's fraud. And again, I remain that Trump is going to be on that ballot in Colorado just because that's how this is going to end up. Not because of wishful thinking, just because I can't see it happening any other way. Anyway, folks, we continue to talk about what's going on with big tech. Don't go anywhere.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. It's Tuesday night. Welcome to hour number 2 of the program. Our phone number, if you want to join our late night national town hall conversation, give us a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And Biden seems to be backing the Supreme Court, removing Trump from the ballot, as he didn't speak out against it. His press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, has also said they will not weigh in on any legal issues the way they weighed in on the legal issues surrounding the Roe versus Wade case. And Speaker Johnson says that this is a thinly veiled partisan attack against former President Trump and Republicans, overall. And comments that he made earlier today. Presidential candidate RFK Jr. has also blasted the Colorado court's decision to ban Trump from the ballot. And there's plenty of news on the topic du jour, which seems to be Trump getting tossed off the ballot. But there's other items out there. And one of the things that I want to talk about tonight is I see Jerry Seinfeld is meeting with folks from hostages that were released and the families of hostages that were being held by Hamas, which is, I think, pretty cool. Nice job, Jerry Seinfeld. But part of what I want to talk about tonight, though, is what we're facing, right? According to one professor, it's the global destruction caused by our obsession with progress at any cost. Now, this particular professor was born in Nazi-occupied Romania, lost most of his family to the Holocaust. Today, he's an academic, and he survived communist tyranny, and now he's warning about this obsession with progress at any cost. He's got a brand new book called Disrupt the Science, The Future Matters, and that is out today. And I want to welcome our guest, Professor Mihai Nadin. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. I hope that, at this late hour, you are going to have enough people interested in finding out why they should be a little worried, and also to realize that it is in their hands to be as active as possible if they care for the future, their own future, the future of their children, the future of the country, the future of humankind.
Outstanding. Well put, sir. Well, I'd like to get a little bit of your background before we get into the book, because I think it's an interesting background and a story that you have personally. What was it like for you coming up?
That's a very dramatic course of events that sometimes I wish I would not have to recall. It's not the easiest thing to go to survive in an environment in which all the forces at work were somehow focused on not allowing you to survive. So being a little more specific, Romania under Nazi and Romania being together with the Germans in World War II already created a situation in which millions of people lost their lives. And then you had the great hope that, okay, the Nazis were now beaten, a new world will start. And indeed it starts, but it started by leading to a form of life that can only be described as life under dictatorship, which means a life in which either you are aligned with the system or you're going to have it very, very tough. Not only that, some of the people who were not aligned lost even their lives. So that would be, in a nutshell, the story.
And from what I read here, it seems you lost a lot of family members to the communist movement and in Nazi-occupied Romania. How did you make your way to the United States?
If you ever wish to write yourself a novel, come and I will give you all the details, but I will give you the short of it. I met at one moment a wonderful human being who happened to be born in the Bronx, and we discovered that we liked each other. And at that moment, I had to apply for permission from the communist regime to get married. We never considered leaving Romania. She was brave enough to consider living in Romania. If I'm telling you now only that permission to get married to a foreigner under the communist regime meant that the president of the country would give the permission.
Wow.
And it took 4.5 years, but it took even something else. Romania wanted the most favored nation clause from the United States. So there was something at the table, at which moment the United States government saying, look, we have an American citizen who would like to marry a Romanian citizen. She is on our list of things that you have to resolve if you want the most favored nation clause. So no American in his right mind would think that in order to get married, you have to get at the level of two states having to settle some affairs.
Understood. So you make your way to the United States is the long and short of it. And today you're an academic, and you're the Asheville Smith Professor Emeritus at the, or you were, at University of Texas in Dallas. And you've written this book. And I've seen the piece that you've written on the cult of machines. And I think the overarching theme of your work is that this quest for progress at any cost is costing us a lot more than it's worth. Tell us more.
Let me answer your question starting a little at the end of it.
Sure.
The word of this year is the word called delusion. I don't know whether you are aware of that. It was just established that this is the word that made it to be the word of the year.
Oh, okay.
So delusion, why did it become the word of the year? Because, not so much because of politicians who are very often delusional, not because of, some people in the media, and I hope that you don't feel, attacked yourself.
No,
but you
fine.
have some colleagues who sometimes can be pretty delusional.
Sure.
The word made it into being the word of the year because artificial intelligence brought to the attention of the public and made it available to the public something called the chat GPT.
Right.
And this chat was used back and forth by lots of people. They wanted to ask, like you go to the Oracle and you ask, you Oracle, give me the answer to this and that question. And chat GPT produced sometimes valid questions, but sometimes delusional answers.
Mm-hmm.
Way, how much would you pay for a delusional answer? And I will give you now the bottom line. If you calculate the amount of energy used for the chat GPT to give you an answer, correct or wrong, you get to the level at which a whole household consumes in a month.
Wow.
In other words, for something of minimal relevance to our lives, of minimal relevance to who we are and what we want to do, we spend an amount of energy that cannot be justified. Is this what we call progress? That the machine can give us delusional answers? Boy, we were able to do it without the machines.
Right.
And that's one simple illustration of what I mean. By the same token, I can say, yes, I belong to those who were very excited when the machine was able to beat the world champion in chess. It is a very interesting accomplishment, goes to the mathematics of playing chess. So a very complicated mathematical question was solved. But yet again, in order to win a game of chess, that machine used the equivalent of electricity used by a town of 2,000 to 3,000 people. Is this a justified accomplishment that can make you and me happy? Or is it something that tells us, boy, we're not smart enough, our machines are not smart enough, because the human being that plays chess, the best human being playing chess, would not consume more than 40 to 50 watts, less than a light bulb. This is where intelligence is, and not in what the machine was doing at a high price for us. And I would not be worried if, the energy would come from the sky and it doesn't cost anything. No, the energy comes from our resources, and the more resources we consume from future generations. In other words, we start accumulating a debt in respect to our own future. And that's where my book comes in, and that's why my book is arguing in favor of disrupting this type of science and proceeding with a type of science that is closer to the real intelligence of the human being.
Professor Mihai Nadin is with us. We're going to continue to discuss a little bit more of what he talks about in his book, in particular this reductionist determinism, which informs the obsession that he's talking about, and why we're at this crossroads at this point. Professor, stick with us, folks. If you want to join the conversation, the phone number is 833-4825-337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Several years now. I want the audience to know what a wonderful, decent person you are. Very, very thoughtful.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, Feliz Navidad. Amigos, we're back, and we're continuing our discussion with Professor Mihai Nadin, and he's got a book called Disrupt Science, The Future Matters. And fantastic piece. This work is really, I think, important. It really delves into quite a number of things, but principally why we have to, stop is what I'm gathering here. Stop this progress at any cost, where we have just will eventually impact so many areas of our life. And Professor, I want to pick up where we left off in discussing just that. Welcome back.
You brought up the issue of reductionist determinism.
Yes.
I am willing to bet that you do not discuss such a subject very often on the late hours on the radio.
No, only when we have Professor Nadin on.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. I take it as a compliment. And still, I wish that everyone listening would realize that we were conditioned through our education to understand everything that is happening in the world as being connected through what we call cause and effect. And we claim that if we know the cause, we're able then to deal with the effect. It turns out that this is not as easy as it sounds. In some cases, definitely, I have a stone in my hands and I'm going to drop it, let the stone fall from my hand, and obviously it's going to fall down. There's a cause and an effect. The cause in this case is the gravity. We don't fall up, we fall down. And until here, everything seems very nice and easy and nothing to worry about. If you let your cat fall, you are going to find out something very interesting. As opposed to the stone that will fall every time the same way, the cat will never fall the same way. So what's the difference? It's the survival. We are able, we means everything that is alive. I gave the example of the cat. I can give other examples as well. We are able to survive on account of having a purpose. We don't fall in love with somebody under this law of the cause and effect. It never happens. It's not like take a hammer and hit a nail, and then you know cause and effect. This is how you drive the nail through whatever you want to drive it. Falling in love is not a cause and effect process. It is driven, interestingly enough, not by the past, like the determinist would say, the cause lies in the past. It is driven by the future. Falling in love is always driven by everything that is involved in what love is. Eventually having a family, eventually having children, eventually of starting to take care of each other and things like that. And the scientific conception that drives determinism is based on the assumption that if I know the past, I know the present, and I am even able to deal with the future. My view is, and it's an important moment to make it clear that this view does not contradict cause and effect, but simply says there is more to reality than cause and effect. And what is that more? It's the future.
Wow.
My current condition is not determined only by my previous history, but also by what I'm expecting in the future. And what is driving me into this future? Obviously, survival. Obviously, the tendency to have a better life. Obviously, to seek satisfaction, to hear a good joke, a concert, to listen to a radio show.
Right. And, you know, Professor, what's interesting here is it seems like you're really describing the title of the book, right? Disrupt Science, The Future Matters. We'll have to leave it right there. Folks, our guest is Professor Mihai Nadin. I could talk to him for hours. This is such a fascinating topic. Professor, I want to thank you for being with us. You are a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. Thank you, sir.
I wish you well.
Likewise. Folks, we're coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. We continue and wrap up our conversation with Professor Mihai Nadin. He's the author of the book, Disrupt Science, The Future Matters. And I want to make sure we put a fine point on everything because there's a lot to discuss here and very little time. But Professor, everybody that's interested in the book, give everybody, I guess, what they can look forward to getting when they pick up a copy of your book.
they can get at least clear understanding of what they can do under the circumstances of a situation in which the world is not in its best shape, in which everybody is complaining about this or that or the other, but very few of us are doing what is consequential for the future, personal future, that of a family, of a community, of a country, and so forth. And in that respect, I will suggest to everyone to take at heart the major thesis of this book. To react to breakdowns is by many orders of magnitude more expensive than to prevent. Think about 9/11. Mm-hmm. Think about the events October 7th, very recent. They could have been prevented. We had all the data necessary in order to avoid the disaster that those dates are associated with. But we didn't do it. We assumed that since we have the data and we have enough machinery, everything will be taken care and will be fine and dandy. And unfortunately, as we all know, that was not the case. Second, the most important aspect of anticipation relates to the health of everyone. It is easy to go to the doctor and complain about headache, get the pill, swallow the pill, and eventually start suffering from the side effects of being treated chemically. It is possible first to prevent whatever leads to headaches, and second, if you have it, start treating it the way nature treats whatever happens unfortunately, within nature. Have the patience on working on your headache. It's going to take longer than to swallow the pill, but you are never going to get either addicted to some other pill or never going to start destroying your kidney and your liver and whatever. Ask those who are forced to take 10, 15 pills a day in which situations they are brought. So I'm very concrete in the book when it comes to such things. Why? Because the book was inspired by COVID. And my claim is COVID should not have happened. We had everything in place to avoid such a situation. And once it happened, it should not have been treated as a chemical emergency in which we invested billions and billions and billions, only to find out in our days that we actually did not solve the COVID problem. There are 60 million people in the world who suffer from long COVID. Why? Because we still don't understand what COVID was, because we don't want to take the time to look at the anticipatory aspects of what can cause the body under certain circumstances to go through what we called COVID. As you probably notice, I'm insisting on these very concrete things because the book is not a book in esoterica. The book is a book in let's start thinking of what it takes to change the education from being a machine that produces people who are no longer willing to use their judgment and who are manipulated by slogans and who are manipulated for the wrong purposes. Let's start changing medicine. It is an absolute necessity. We are not going to remain a sustainable society if we don't do these things. And not unimportant, let's start changing politics. Politics is supposed to be visionary. This country started as an anticipatory project. Those who made possible the coming into reality of this country were, if you want, dreamers. And dreamers means prepared for actions that will make this country a viable alternative to whatever was in the world at that time. That would be my suggestion to the reader. And I hope that the reader if he or she has any questions, will have enough courage to look for me. I'm willing to discuss with any reader who might have a question or another question after reading the book.
Now, Professor, again, Mihai Nadin, could you let everybody know how they can find you online or on social media?
You can find me on social media, first of all, on my own website, which is www.nadin, Nadin, @WS.
Okay.
As you see, it's a very short thing. Or you can write me an email at nadine@utdallas.edu.
Easy enough. Folks, Professor Nadin is on a mission to disrupt science and change the way humanity assumes responsibility for its own future and for that of the planet. And it's a fascinating concept. I really enjoy the conversation, Professor. Godspeed to you and Merry Christmas.
Very best wishes to you and your two listeners.
Thank you. Bye-bye. All right, folks, we will continue with more. Professor Nadin mentioned about the events of October 7th, and we've seen the rise of anti-Semitism in the world. I want to get your thoughts on this, and we're also going to get some input on anti-Semitism as well. Coming up straight ahead, 833-482-5337. Plus, we've got Open Phone America starting at the top of the next hour. We'll probably tap into that just shy of towards the end of this hour with some of your phone calls. So you can start getting those in now. 833-4-VALDEZ is the number. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, familia, welcome back, amigos. We continue our Feliz Navidad extravaganza, and I want to talk a little bit about anti-Semitism. It's obviously all over the news. We see more and more of it as the days go by. And it's disheartening. And I was looking at a piece written by Randi Weingarten. She's president of the American Federation of Teachers, saying it's not too late to preserve American democracy, right? And she goes on and on and on and trashing Trump, but she doesn't ever rein in the crazy in her group, right, in the teachers union. And, you know, when I think of crazies, I think that there's a lot going on there. We have so many situations where we've got people that are, and again, not just public schools, but college campuses all over the place. We're seeing anti-Semitism kind of be embraced. And it's almost like a badge of honor for so many that claim to be on the progressive left. And I want to get into that and a couple of other topics with our guest, Cindy Grosz. She's a Jewish activist, former congressional candidate in New York's 4th District. She's the host of the Jewish Patriot radio show and Cindy's Corner podcast. Cindy Grosz, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
My
We've been
pleasure.
talking about this for a while, so this is great.
So tell me what you think about this this piece by Randi Weingarten, and we'll work our way into the rest of the anti-Semitism.
So I will tell you that I have the longest-running lawsuit in the New York City Department of Education, and I've had many interactions with Randi Weingarten when she was the leader of the United Federation of Teachers. What's going on today should not be something that we shouldn't have expected, because our education system has been filled with failure and hate for the past 20 years. My lawsuit has information in it dating back to 2004. I filed my lawsuit in 2011, and it's still ongoing. I will tell you, as a Jewish teacher, I saw and reported to the teachers' unions, representatives in my school, in my district, even Randy, to people at the head of the Department of Education, things that I saw, inappropriate lessons, lots of codes of discipline being violated, including administration hitting students, misrepresentations of documents submitted for paperwork with safety issues. And when I filed my lawsuit, and this is something you can relate to as a Trump person who appreciates President Trump, and he was actually the first presidential candidate to point out in 2016, trying to eliminate or diminish the power of the Federal Department of Education because he saw the waste. And that's probably one of the reasons that Randy became enemy number one during his campaign, the first time, the second time, and now. But this hate has been going on for years. There were so many lessons that were taught that were full of opinion and not fact, against whites, against Jews. There was a professional development in 2006 that was paid for and approved by the Department of Education and the Teachers Union in Brooklyn, where about 40 staff members were supposed to be talking about how to deal with gang awareness, and it was a whole discussion how the Jews of Williamsburg controlled all the money, and it was a conspiracy theory against minorities. And and this goes on and on. Lessons about Jewish holidays that were misrepresented, staff members that were intimidated to take off on Jewish holidays, and it's still ongoing. Talking about Alfred Dreyfus, the Jew. I mean, there were so many different things I could point out. And if someone tried to expose it and be a whistleblower, they were harassed, intimidated, and they were put through what I went through, what I've been going through. And the proof of it is Donald Trump can't get a fair trial, as we see what's going on this week in Colorado, among other court cases he has going on. Within my case, we had, which is considered an illegal termination hearing 6 months after I filed my lawsuit, where the documents and the evidence submitted, the Department of Education witnesses, all validated my points.
Now, Cindy, I want to get your opinion on this other story that I'm seeing in the New York Post. Generation Z's views on Israel and Jews are a disturbing betrayal of their own values. Now, I'm not sure if you've seen this article, but I think in culture we've seen a lot of this, where there's a lot of people that claim to support Israel, but they're not. They're kind of secretly supporting Hamas, and it seems to be the younger crowd that seems more willing to do that, and it's very, very I think disheartening, to say the least. But what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm not surprised because, like I said, the people that have been teaching, a lot of them were sharing these views in their classrooms now for 20 and 30 years. So
Right.
the people you see marching that are getting paid the $30 an hour from the Craigslist that were a part of Occupy Wall Street and Black Lives Matter, it's the same thing. There was a rally about a month ago organized by the teachers union, and one of the, I think it was Fox, had some interviews with the teachers. They couldn't even pronounce Palestine, had no idea where it is. None of them have ever been to Israel, but yet this is what they teach. And this is a big part of what I tried to expose 20 years ago. And it went through Common Core, and when people tried to fight Common Core, we couldn't do it. And by the time...
Well, I'm sure it's endless, right? There's one thing, there's the next thing. There's so many different issues, Cindy Grosz, and I know you're on the front lines of so many of them. Take a moment, because we've got probably about 20 seconds left, and let everybody know how they can follow you on your website or your social media.
I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. You could find me. My website, cindygrosz.com. And I'm on every major podcast outlet with my show, The U.S. Patriot. You don't have to be Jewish to be a part of the show, because we talk about issues like education and politics, as well as cultural issues. And we talk about the future of America, because what's going on now in Israel, that's just the tip of the iceberg. The people that organized October 7th are the people that want to get rid of democracy and Western civilization.
I think you're right, Cindy Grosz. I want to thank you for being here tonight. Folks, Cindy Grosz, Jewish activist, former congressional candidate out of New York, host of the U.S. Patriot radio program and podcast. Give her a follow at Cindy Grosz. That's GROSZ.com. Cindy Grosz, I hope you had a great Hanukkah. I wish you a very happy New Year, and thanks for being here tonight.
Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and hope to see you very soon.
You bet. All right, folks. More to come straight ahead. Your calls and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, America, welcome back. And Open Phone America is coming up straight ahead. Hour number 3, 833-4-VALDEZ. Let's get a preview of that and check in with Dave, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, KDKA. Dave, go right ahead.
Hi, Mr. Valdez. Great show.
Thank you, sir.
You know, I just feel like a lot of people feel, anymore, that anti-Semitism that everybody's talking about, that's not the problem. The problem is that AIPAC and their control and ownership of our leaders and media distracts the, frankly, intellectually lazy American public.
Well, see, here's the problem I have with that, and it's not a defense of AIPAC as much as it is. AIPAC is just one of many lobbying organizations, just like, Hamas could be out there, and they are, right? CARE is out there. There's a lot of front groups for Hamas and radical Islamist causes. And we can't turn around and say that they're the cause. I mean, they might be the cause for Ilhan Omar or for Rashida Tlaib, but by and large, I can't say that anti-Semitism is not a problem and that some lobbying organization is, because ultimately this is a real problem, right? On October 7th, it wasn't AIPAC that attacked these people in the music festival in Israel, right? It wasn't. It was Hamas that did that. And AIPAC is just doing their thing here in the United States to drum up support, to gain influence in Congress, what everybody else on K Street in the lobbying business is doing. So I can't put the blame squarely on AIPAC. I have to put the blame on Hamas. Dave in Pittsburgh, listening on KDKA, thank you very much for your call. Merry Christmas to you. Folks, we're coming right back with the rest of your calls and more. Don't go anywhere. I am Rich Valdez, and Open Phone America starts right now.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to hour number 3 of the program. We call it Open Phone America. If you want to join our late-night national town hall conversation, you get to pick whatever topic you like. You can discuss any of the topics we've discussed tonight, whether it be how we have to take control of our future and disrupt the science, whether it's the legality of tossing Trump from the Colorado ballot, or anti-Semitism that's running amok. You name it, it's open season over here. 833-4825-337, 833-4-Valdez is the phone number. And one of the things I want to talk about tonight is Vice President Kamala Harris. That's right, Vice President Kamala Harris, as I like to call her. She's had a couple of things to say today, but it wouldn't be fair for me to talk about Vice President Kamala Harris without plugging our Kamala Harris song. Let's hit those maracas. Kamala, Kamala Harris, Kamala Harris, Kamala, Kamala, Kamala Harris, Kamala Harris, Kamala. That's the Kamala Harris song. Kamala Harris, how bad she is. Kamala, Kamala Harris, Kamala Harris, Kamala. So Kamala Harris, Kamala Harris, as she's known here, affectionately known here on this program, she was trying to put some words together today to describe how fortunate and blessed she is. Listen to this.
I have been fortunate and blessed to, during the course of being vice president, have many situations where it becomes clear to me that there are, people of every age and gender, by the way, who see something about being the first that lets them know they don't need to be limited by other people's limited understanding of who can do what.
Okay, thank you. If any of you guys got that, feel free to let me know what that meant. I didn't understand any of it. I lack the intellectual fortitude to really comprehend that. But if you do know what she meant by that, feel free to drop me a comment on the Facebook page or the Instagram page or the Truth Social page at Rich Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez. I'm looking at the Facebook page now, by the way, and I'll read some of those comments a little bit later. But Kamala Harris, the vice president, she says that she's very blessed. And I think so many of us are blessed. And she didn't mention that she's blessed because we live in a free market economy. She didn't say she was blessed because we live in America. She didn't say we're blessed because of so many of the different reasons that we have to be thankful and really enjoy the blessings of being an American. But that's not what she was talking about. She was just saying she was blessed to be vice president. Oh, boy, Kamala Harris. But she also went on to say that we need increased aid for Hamas in Gaza. Listen to this.
Lauren says, I was in Dubai recently meeting with a number of leaders, including many Arab leaders, to talk about our commitment as the United States to a two-state solution and a commitment to doing the hard work that will require to get to a place where we, for the principles that we have stated, will insist there be no reoccupation of Gaza by the Israelis. There will be no forced displacement of Palestinians. But we work toward equal measures of security, prosperity, and freedom for Israelis and for Palestinians. And so that is a big part of our goal at this point as well, which is to do what is possible to lay the pathway for that possibility and that goal.
Okay, well, there's another profound, eloquent statement from Kamala Harris. And I want to get your thoughts on this, right? Because I don't get it all. I honestly don't. I'm somewhat confused. but maybe you can help us make sense of it. Let's go to Debbie in Canton, Ohio on WNIR. Debbie, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich. Excuse me, I'm clearing my throat. Hey, by the way, Kamala?
Yes.
What's her name? Kamala? All right.
Mm-hmm.
She sounds like me about 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock tonight. Yeah. She's had a few. Okay, can I just say it?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. When she was talking, I was thinking, she sounds like me when I'm reading something, speaking on the air, looking at my phone, and have like 4 different distractions going on, and words just come out of my mouth. But I'm not the vice president, right? So I always find her humorous. Debbie.
Right, I'm not the vice president. I could do this because I'm a grandma of 6 grandkids, and I just want to call. I'm calling in from Canton, and I said I was very distressed or hurt because we had a young man at 13 years old had to serve like he's going to serve. Well, he's 13. He's not going to be in jail, but he was brought up on charges of what I can't even say
anti-Semitism.
That's how much wine I've had tonight. But it really distresses me because he is from the school system that my kids were raised in. My son still works in. My grandkids are going there now, and I know for a fact this is not taught in the schools there. That's not a fact there. But apparently, I guess he was an internet viewer or whatever. It really bothers me that I just don't want Canton to be known as that because that's not what we are. We're a good community. We're inclusive. We all get along, you know.
Right. Well, Debbie, what I find is that as this war with Hamas and Israel continues to progress, there's more and more people that are, displaying, sometimes even proudly displaying their anti-Semitism. And the piece that I was looking at before in the New York Post really kind of drills down on this. Part of it, I'll read you just a portion of it. It says, many young Americans champion causes for sexual, racial, and religious minorities, yet overlook that regimes that they're supporting often oppress these very same groups. Conversely, Israel is a beacon for LGBTQ plus rights, racial diversity, and religious freedom. But the pursuit of viral content on social media often trumps coherence, and your best chance of going viral is saying something shocking. Incoherence is almost the point. Now, while some of these messages may stem from more genuine ignorance than opportunistic clout chasing, the ridiculousness of saying ceasefire now, today, and globalize the intifada tomorrow is clear to almost everyone else. And it goes on to say that contributing to this disconnect amongst young Americans is their lack of historical knowledge, especially about events like the Holocaust, skewing their perception of conflicts like Israel's situation in Gaza. And it goes on. It's a really good piece. I'll share it on social media at Rich Valdez with an S. A good piece by Ite Milner. But ultimately, it's what you're saying, right? Americans don't want to be known as Jew haters. Folks from Canton, Ohio don't want to be known as Jew haters. But yet, there's always a bad apple in the bunch somewhere. And the piece here alludes to the fact that it's not even genuine Jew hatred. And this is something a guest brought up last night or the night before, saying it's really anti-Israel, right? It's an anti-Zionist movement. It's an anti-Western movement, but it's not necessarily anti-Jewish because they don't know much about Jewish and or about Judaism, I should say. And I thought that was a very interesting point, a sad one, but a very interesting one. And it's supported by the thesis here, which says that it's because they just don't know. They just don't know. And it's that ignorance that seems to be permeating all of these threads. And that's unfortunate. What say you, Debbie?
Well, I just say that I would just say that Israel should shut it down right now, stop the bombing, stop it right now. I'm not anti-Semite. I'm not. But I think that we need to take a breath there and stop it right now, because they're killing a lot of people that really don't need to be killed. It's really not worth it. And step back and be the bigger person. Be the bigger person. Be the better person is what I'm saying. All right?
Yep.
And they should
Debbie.
be that. And that's what I'm saying. Thank you.
Well,
Bye-bye.
Merry Christmas. I appreciate it. And we'll continue to have that discussion as we progress through the evening. Folks, 833-4825-337 is the phone number, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Voted best head of hair in live late night radio 6 years in a row. It's Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, America, welcome back. And we're going to get to your calls right now. I see that it's almost jam-packed, the phone lines. So keep trying. If you get a busy signal, we will get through these quickly. But I just wanted to say we're also monitoring the comments that are coming in on the social media sites. And on Facebook, Hubert Miller says this: Rich, I have criticized you sometimes over some of your political loyalties, but I want to commend you now. You have dynamic guests, and these bite-sized interviews fit well into the limited time span you have for the show. Hearing Mihai Nadin tonight moved me to comment here. You have a fine radio program, and I have to say I have learned a lot besides the entertainment value. Happy Christmas, and may you be much blessed in the new year. Well, Hubert Miller, thank you very much. I always, like I said, I always appreciate a good critique. Thank God I have a healthy dose of ego, and I take them for what they are. I take them constructively, or I just don't take them at all. But either way, I do appreciate it, both your kind words and everything else. And just a programming note on that, bite-sized interviews, I guess perhaps maybe because we don't do full hour-long interviews, but by and large, I think the interviews on this program, 2 segments, 3 segments, are way longer than just about every other radio program out there. We try to do a long-form interview where we can do a deep dive and really get you to the substance of things. At least that's the goal, a la Larry King, a la Jim Bohannon, a la this show. So we try to do that, and hopefully we're doing that. But if we're not, I'll still take the bite-size comment, and I'll appreciate it. And the limited time, 3 hours, is pretty standard for syndicated programs. But I take that as a compliment if you think the show is short, right? Amen to that. I think it's short too. I'm always angling for hour number 4. Hubert Miller, thank you, sir. God bless you. Have a good new year. Let's continue with the calls. I want to go to Ken, Lansing, Michigan, WILS. Ken, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez.
Good
Welcome.
evening, Rich. Before I get into what I want to say, we lost the greatest voice in radio a couple of years ago in Maharishi.
Yeah.
We needed someone to step up to the plate and help fill that void. And Mark, the great one, Levin, was already there, but you come in out of the pitch hitter's box, buddy, and you've hit a home run for us. You speak nothing but the truth. I listened to Rush for over 20 years, and I used to tell my children who are now in their 30s years ago, would you guys please listen? They just thought he was a right-wing blowhard. And I said, you guys, he speaks the truth. Please, would you just give this guy 1 week? And they never did give him that 1 week. So I'm just advising anybody listening this week for the first time listening to Rich, if you don't like what you hear tonight, give Rich a week and you'll hear the truth. Which side of the truth you fall on, I don't know, but you'll hear the truth.
Well, Ken, that's super kind, and I'm moved, honestly. I mean, that's a tremendous compliment, and I really appreciate it. Very, very nice of you to say. And, kudos to El Rushbo. I mean, El Rushbo was definitely not just an amazing broadcaster, but really a thought leader, right, who really kind of created this national niche, if you will. And wisdom well beyond his years. It wasn't just a funny right-winger like you're saying. He called things out. He was very prescient. The things that he was talking about would happen years down the road. He saw this stuff coming a mile away. A really, really prescient and brilliant broadcaster and thinker. And America surely misses him. Ken, tell me what's on your mind tonight.
Well, Rich, what's going on in our country is what's on our mind. We have so many people in college that are supposed to be going there and getting an education and then going on to lead their lives and have children and run our country. And we've got so many ignorant, jackass people at the highest institutions in this country. And I'm going to just say it this way and give everybody else a go. The epitome of the ignorance of these kids today was in a rally I seen last week with a sign saying, and I quote, "Queers for Palestine." Have a great night, Rich.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Ken. Yeah, it kind of goes in line with that piece in the New York Post that I was looking at, where they were saying, they champion these causes and they want to be there for the culture war, and there's nothing wrong with that except for the fact that you're in alignment with the people that are your biggest detractors. And you're right. I mean, it smacks of ignorance, and it's sad. It's sad, but it is funny, right? At the same time, I can't help but laugh, thinking it's like, sheep on their way to the slaughter. And what can you do other than just try to educate people as much as you can? Like you said, I used to tell people that with my podcast. It was 40 minutes, still is 40 minutes long, 36 minutes. And I would tell people, listen, I don't care if you like me or not, but just give me 3 episodes, 3 of those 40-minute episodes, and then decide if you never want to listen to me again or not, because I tried to be more topical, not so like here, it's a daily news program, so we talk about everything that's going on in America at night. But on the podcast, This is America with Rich Valdez, we typically talk about topics and kind of do a deep dive into those topics without calls and usually without guests. So it was one of those things where I just wanted people to just hear another perspective on those issues. But I think you're right. And this ultimately is an information war that we're in the throes of. And who wins? I don't know. But I know, am I going to give them hell? Absolutely. And do I have all of you that got my back? Absolutely. And we're going to do what we got to do. And again, thanks for saying those nice things about me and also about El Rushbo and also about the great one, Mark Levin, my former boss, mentor, dear friend. And I really do appreciate it, Ken. Folks, we're coming back to the rest of your calls and more. We've got calls from Indiana, Idaho, Illinois, New York, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, and more coming in. 833-482-5337, 833-4Valdez. Don't go anywhere. I am Rich Valdez. It's Open Phone America, and we're coming right back.
Rich Valdez, who again will do a fine job, but I know you'll enjoy listening to him.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4Valdez. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4Valdez. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, I don't know which Christmas song that is, Count Dracula, but it doesn't sound like Christmas to me. Anyway, Feliz Navidad, America. Welcome back, amigos. Listen, familia, I want to invite you to be on this program tomorrow. We're going to do calls all night tomorrow with a friend of mine, homegirl, Lydia Serrani. is going to be with us for the whole show. And she is an Albanian American from the Bronx who was a breaking news reporter on the Fox affiliate in New York City, then did radio for a few years. We worked together in New York City on radio. And she's now the host of Saturday Agenda on Newsmax TV. You can catch her on the weekends. She has a phenomenal show. She's an amazing broadcaster, and she really calls them like she sees them. So make sure you're here. Make it an appointment to be here tomorrow night to listen to Lydia Serrani. And I want to continue with your calls. Let us go to Becky, Clinton, Illinois, WHOW. Becky, go right ahead.
I got a couple funny ones for you here.
Yeah.
I heard one the other day. Two guys ran into one of those cash stores where they can get money, and they robbed them. They left the car running while they went in. When they came back, the car was gone. They had stolen the car to begin with, and then somebody else stole it from them.
Wow. That's crazy. Okay. The criminals got robbed.
Yeah. And then tonight I heard about, I'm drawing a blank here. The guy ran into a cigarette store. He stole a pack of smokes. And he came running out, and the cops were chasing him, and they chased him to his house. Anyway, he ran into the garage, and then he set fire to his house, and the cops got him. But when he came back out he shot at the cops. And then after they caught him, he came back out, and he told the police, call President Biden, he'll pardon me.
Well, I'll tell you, that's crazy. But Biden is always saying funny things, Becky. One of the things that he said today was that black-owned businesses need opportunities. Listen to this.
There's some in this country who are waging a full-on attack of black economic opportunity. They're denying economic opportunity when it comes to higher education, starting a business, keeping businesses open. That's how you generate economic opportunity. You educate people.
Now, he's saying that black businesses don't get the opportunities they need and that you need to educate people. I don't know what one has to do with the other. If a business isn't getting the opportunity it needs, what does it have to do with educating people, right? Educated and uneducated people alike buy at black-owned businesses. This man makes no sense. But he doesn't stop there. He goes on to say that minority-owned businesses just don't get a fair shake, in particular during the Trump years when their median incomes were higher than they ever were. Unemployment was lower than it's ever been, and there were more people owning homes, blacks and Hispanics, than ever before. Listen to this.
Just remember how the pandemic hit black businesses especially hard. How my predecessor on his watch, women and minority-owned small businesses found themselves last in line to access emergency relief through programs like the Paycheck Protection Program.
So, Becky, it sounds like to me that during the Trump years, people were opening businesses and they were moving forward. And during the Biden years, you've got the criminals getting robbed. Their getaway car is not even there when they're done robbing people. I think this is absolutely crazy. What say you?
I think that the two that just got caught that I heard, I think they have a mental issue because an average person just wouldn't do this stuff.
I agree with you 100%. Regular people don't do that. These are the type of people that would probably vote for Biden to serve another term. And that's a scary idea. Becky, I want to wish you a Merry Christmas. Thank you for the call. And big shout out to everybody in Clinton, Illinois on WHOW. We continue. Let us go here to Aaron, Terre Haute, Indiana, WRMF. Aaron, go right ahead.
Hey, how's it going, Rich? I love your show. I listen to it every night on my way home from work.
Oh, thank you.
I like your topics, too. They're great.
I try to keep it varied, right? Otherwise, people yell at me.
Yeah. But I want to talk a little bit about what's going on with Trump in Colorado.
Yeah.
I think this is a dangerous time for the country when it comes to them removing him off the ballot. I don't think that. I mean, it's not only you're not allowing the people to decide who they want, and it's taken away their freedom there. I really want to know how the people feel out there. I don't know anybody there to talk to yet, but I'm just curious how the people actually feel about something that's going on in their state.
You know, Aaron, I think you're spot on with this. I have to agree with you that this ruling is taking away the right to vote of Americans in Colorado. And four judges, it was literally four judges that have made this choice to say, you know what, the rest of you people, and I don't know how many people there are in Colorado, but I'm going to presume it's, I don't know, 8, 10, 12 million, whatever it is, maybe 6, 7 million, whatever they have. And those amount of people no longer have a choice. Now, I am confident that this won't survive. And if you caught the first hour of this program, we really went deep on that with Jim Trusty. He's one of Trump's former attorneys. He's also the head of the organized crime unit at the Department of Justice. And he really spelled it out for us. And he was a prosecutor for nearly 30 years, and he's a defense attorney now. But it seems to me that this is something that we really have to address, right? Because all of our friends on KNFO in Colorado, they should call in. I think that we should definitely hear from them on this issue because they're losing their right to vote, and this isn't something that we could really tolerate moving forward, Aaron.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and just and if I know it's going to go to the Supreme Court to
right.
I don't see it going through there, but if it does, look at the other states that are going to try this. That's what scares me, I guess. I think it's taking away our freedom. I'm a true patriot, and I listen to your show, and I know you are too.
Thank you.
And, I'm just kind of lost about that situation. It's just unbelievable. And everything else that's going on in the country.
Yeah, well, Aaron, it's very disheartening when you see things like this, and we've seen so many of them, right? They spied on Trump's campaign. They spied on Trump in the White House. They colluded to impeach Trump through extra constitutional means, right? They went around the traditional constitutional way of doing things. They've done everything they can with these 4 indictments, with every charge they've made up, these 91 felony counts with the raid on Mar-a-Lago. I mean, there's so many things that they've done to Trump, but really, to me, these are all attacks on the Republic, attacks on my liberty, attacks on your liberty, on my children's liberty. If you can do it to Trump, you're certainly going to do it to my children, because why not, right? If Trump can sit here and fight the good fight, he's got a big mouth, he's got the bully pulpit, he's got the money to defend himself. What do I have? What do my children have? What do your children have? Right? None of us can really compare to that level of resources. So ultimately, we get screwed. And we saw it happen with General Michael Flynn and so many others that were forced into taking plea deals, forced into silence. They're trying to do it to Rudy Giuliani right now. We're seeing it time and time again, and it must end. Aaron, thanks for your kind words. Merry Christmas to you. God bless. Folks, we continue with the rest of your calls. Straight ahead, don't move a muscle.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
So just a couple of quick things here. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick was in Texas, obviously. He suggested taking Biden off of the ballot in Texas for failing to enforce the border laws. I thought that was fantastic. And President Biden was discussing the matter of illegal immigration, and he says, you know what? Our diversity is our strength. Yeah, well, sir, diversity might be a strength. Our real strength is a secure nation, right? Our military and our protected borders, which are non-existent. So I think it's just fascinating that Biden, beats on this drum as if it's somehow a good thing to leave the entire country just open and susceptible to attack. Anyway, let us go to Bill, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, KDKA. Go right ahead.
Hi, Rich. Hey, I want to ask you one question. But before that, could I do a couple impersonations? Okay, I'm going to do Joe Biden. Mm-hmm. He was talking to a black man talk show host, I think. And he said, "Hey, man, if you don't vote for me, then you're not black." Okay, That's it. Here's Kamala Harris. She wants to talk. She wants to be president. So she's going to talk to us, and she's going to tell us about space. Now, space is big. Space is real big. Okay. Now, if you look to the west, you're going to see Venus, I think, and I can't remember the other planet. It reminds me of a car. I don't know if it's the soda. If you look the other way, space is huge. Okay.
It's kind of like the school bus, right? Well, Bill, I love the impersonation, and the first one was Charlemagne the God. He's a talk show host on one of the New York hip hop stations. And Biden literally told him, if you don't know if you're voting for me or voting for Trump, well, then you ain't black. And he literally got a pass on that, which I thought was remarkable. Anyway, Bill, what's on your mind?
All right, Rich, how long? I am just an average American. I retired. I got 15 grandchildren. I'm sorry. I forgot about the last one. I'm sorry. Actually, my last one was a great grandchild. So I got 14 grandchildren and one great one. I'm not that old. I mean, I don't feel that old, but anyway.
Well, congratulations. We're going to run out of time.
Thanks, man. But anyways, oh my God, Rich, where are we going, man? Where are we going? How much longer do you think you, as an average American, could put up with this garbage? I mean, we all know it's garbage. We're gonna lie to you right in front.
Oh yeah, listen, Bill, I know you're frustrated. Like so many Americans right now. Some get angry, some get frustrated, some become jaded. I go through these emotions every single week, depending on the day, right? Some days I'm snippy, some days I'm just like, somebody talk me off the ledge. I don't know if I could take it anymore. But the reality is this. I think so much of life in general is like showering. You got to do it every day. You just got to do it every day. And for the people that think like, oh, but what's the use of taking a shower? You're just going to get dirty again anyway. Yeah, that's how it works. And then you shower again and you do it again. And you go to sleep and you work and you shower and you do it again. And that's what it's about, tenacity. And when it gets too much, this is the reason why you'll listen to this show and you'll hear one of Trump's former attorneys and you might hear some other newsmaker. And then you'll hear somebody talking about psychotherapy or talking about joy and happiness or talking about something that's off the beaten path. And it's because there's more to life than the news of the day. There's more to life than politics. There's more to life than what's happening in Washington. Trust me, those guys in Washington, when they go back into their district for the next 10 days and they're off, they're not worried about the stuff we're worried about. They're not worried about inflation. They're not worried about any of those things. Any of them. They make a lot of money. They have a big campaign war chest, and they're living a life that you and I wish we could live. So for a moment, I think it's important to live in the present, right? Not worry about the past, not worry about the future, but to live in the present, to be mindful, to be grateful, to think about what's going on right now, and to be appreciative of what we have going on, especially as we go into Christmas. And come January, We can go back into celebrating the anniversary of January 6th and talking about the next continuing resolution and how we're going to shut down the government and all of those same stories that we talk about all the time. But right now, I think we take it easy. And how long can the people hang on? Well, Bill, I think people are going to hang on as long as they can, because everybody's meter is different, right? Everybody's fuse is a different length. And ultimately, when people are making money, when the economy is solid, when jobs are moving and people are there and people can take those 1 or 2 vacations a year and they can afford to put gas in their car and pay for their heating bill and have a home and all of that stuff, then people they're chilling, right? They're happy and they're good. And when they're not, they're not. So right now, people are under the gun. But I think we'll get a new president. We'll get some good policy. We'll start to reverse course on things, and things will give us some breathing room. And I think that's how it's going to go down. Anyway, Bill, thank you so much. You are a patriot. Thanks for your impressions. Thanks for your call. Thanks for listening. Godspeed to you. Merry Christmas. We're going to come back with the rest of your calls and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
My hands across America to the liberty-loving Latino, Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, Feliz Navidad, my familia. Thank you very much, amigos, as my dad would say, Merry Christmas. And let's go. Scott, Charleston, South Carolina, WTMA, quickly.
Rich, I changed my topic while I was on hold. When you mentioned the Republicans in Colorado being disenfranchised, it got me thinking about the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Mm-hmm. Everybody's talking about the 14th Amendment, but if a state Supreme Court did that in the South, it would be null and void until the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department signed off on it. And I would think or speculate any Republican in Colorado has a cause of action to file in the federal court in Colorado to have this reviewed under the Voting Rights Act.
I think you're right. I think you're 100% right. It sounds like a very plausible complaint to me, the type of grievance that would make sense to be brought. Scott in Charleston, South Carolina, WTMA, excellent thinking. Merry Christmas to you, sir. I appreciate that. Let's continue. Jeff Powell, Wyoming, KPOW. K-Pow, go right ahead.
Yeah, hey, I was just calling like long time ago. I was a professional hunter in Alaska, cool. and I came back to my son, who is in second grade.
Yep, we're down to like 20 seconds.
Okay, and like he had a book that they were reading about the bad man with the gun.
Oh wow!
And yeah.
And it's interesting, the things that they put into schools now, like they won't teach you how to go hunting. They won't teach you marksmanship or archery in some schools, but they're willing to teach you that there's a bad man with a gun and that it's okay to become a girl in many cases. Jeff, I appreciate your call. Merry Christmas to you. Godspeed, sir. You're a patriot. I appreciate it. Paul in Boise, I owe you one. I'll be back with you guys on Friday, and we will wrap this thing up for the whole year. Don't forget, tomorrow night, don't miss this show. My homegirl, Lydia Serrana, is here. Take care. Good night. God bless. Hasta la próxima. I'm Rich Valdez.